Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Mess. So Tarek in a continuing series. Is that an analog in your pocket, or are you just happy to see me? Where I show you the Analogue Pocket, how to get different cores set up, the best games to play, and go through all of the settings for a core to make sure you have a great time. And if you can't tell already, today we're talking about the Super Nintendo and Super Famicom, one of the most popular systems to ever be made, and I will say on Analogue Pocket it is absolutely spectacular. Before we get too far involved though, do me a huge favor, go down below, hit like and subscribe, and ring that notification bell, definitely helps us out. And if you want to support the channel, we got a Patreon link down below as well. But Analogue Pocket does an incredible job of being a Super Nintendo, especially in handheld mode. The screen reproduces the graphics that I expected of Super Nintendo so well. This screen is a 10 out of 10 in handheld mode. But we really want to get the core set up because this doesn't work on your Analogue Pocket by default. We need to get this set up with all of the games we want to play. Stuff like Yoshi's Island here, absolute spectacular Hall of Fame first ballot game. And that's what I'm here to show you today, how to play all these amazing games on your Pocket. Now I'm going to assume at this point forward you've already followed my Pocket setup guide and gotten all of the OpenFPGA cores installed. If you haven't, go down below and click that link. You'll see here I have all the games from games that I already own ready to go. What we're going to do is extract them from the zip file because I'm going to be using the bare files here, not zips. Once we extract them, you're going to see that all of the file types for the games themselves are .sfc. That stands for Super Famicom, and that's the hardware I had in the beginning of the video. It's Super Nintendo everywhere else. In Japan, it is Super Famicom. We don't need those zips anymore, so let's just get rid of them. These are what we're going to be putting on our Analogue Pocket, and as long as they all end in .sfc, we're going to have a really good time and be able to play them. So I'm going to copy these over, and we're going to put them where they need to be within your micro SD card for OpenFPGA. Just because the file extension is .sfc, the folder is going to be SNES. It is for Super Nintendo. I know that seems to be tripping some people up, especially when they see SMS right there. That is for Sega Master System. We go in the Super Nintendo folder and under Common, and that is where we're going to paste all of our files. All of the games we want to play on the Super Nintendo core and Analogue Pocket are going to go in here. If they're not in this folder, the core is never going to see them whatsoever. And one last time, you'll see that all of the file extensions end in the same .sfc. So just make sure you get the files where they need to be. It's in Common, and then it's under SNES, and then it's going to be under Assets from there. And I'm just showing you a work back because some people end up putting these in the wrong folder, and that really does make it not work 100% of the time. Now again, if you don't have any of these folders or micro SD cards set up, you're going to use Pocket Updater, and I do have a tutorial down below. You can always update your installation for OpenFPGA cores as well just by hitting Update All, but if you haven't done this yet, you're really going to need that video below, so don't forget about it. Now on the controller front, because the Super Nintendo does use that diamond pattern, we have so many awesome options as to how we actually want to play this with controls. I really like the Switch Pro, the Xbox Series X, PlayStation 4, DualSense. You have so many different ways to play. It is an amazing system, and I love the controller versatility that we get here. Pick which one you like and just run with it. You should be happy. Now once we get into the actual Pocket menu, we're going to go into OpenFPGA, Console, and then we're going to go to Super Nintendo because there is no number next to it. That means there is just one core. If you hit run, you'll be able to see the list of games you've added to your system. I have a different Pocket that has a lot more games on it, or a micro SD card. These are just for my examples. Pick whichever game you want, press A, and it's going to start loading up. It'll be ready to go in like 10 seconds or less. And of course I'm going to show you Yoshi's Island 2. For the longest time, this was a game under software emulation that had a lot of trouble, but obviously software emulations cracked that code, and FPGA is no different. If there's any issues whatsoever with Yoshi's Island, I have absolutely no idea outside of the fact that Baby Mario has the most annoying cry you could ever possibly hear. But there's a lot of different settings in the core as well to go through. Just because you got your games running doesn't mean you've seen everything. So let me just get to a spot here that is good to pause into, and we'll go into the core settings. Like every core, you can remap your controls, but I will say the defaults here 100% work as far as what they should be working for on a Super Nintendo layout. Everything matches. I really wouldn't adjust anything unless you have this strange desire to reconfigure your controls to something different than we already have on Super Nintendo. But hey, the choice is 100% yours, and that's the good thing about choice. You will see there's a CPU turbo option as well as a Super Effects turbo option. Just be aware that if you toggle either of those, it seems, at least for me in game, it's going to freeze the game and you do need to reset. Nothing is going to happen here. But that that's the fun part, is you do get those options, and if you do freeze, just reset the core and you'll be right back where you want to be. I leave everything at stock speed so I get the most accurate representation of a Super Nintendo, but if you want to play around with it, you totally can. You also have different gamepad options. You can do Super Scope, Justifier, or mouse for the games that use them. I'm not going to show you how that works in this tutorial. If you want a light gun tutorial on all of the cores, leave me a comment down below and tell me, and I might just make that in the future, but be aware it is there and you can change the sensitivity of it. Now we have square pixels and we have non-square pixels, and I'm going to show them to you side by side in a comparison. The aspect ratio is going to be different. What you're looking at here, non-square pixels on the left, square pixels on the right, you can see that the aspect ratio is widened from one screen to the other. I prefer the example on the right, but again, this is subjective and you can totally choose whatever you want. This isn't extending it to 16:9 and stretching everything out terribly, so you do get that option. But you can see here in this example on the left, the text box is way more rectangular, where on the right it's still a rectangle, but it's hewing closer to being a square. Just pick whichever one looks good to you. Maybe in handheld mode you like one thing, maybe docked you like the other, and don't forget some options aren't available in handheld mode either. But if you go back to a bigger example, take a look at where the borders are here. When I go over to square pixels, they just shrink down. This looks more accurate to me. So go ahead and choose whatever you want. The choice is yours, and that's always the fun thing. We get so much choice, except save states. They're not in the core, so if you can't figure out how to use them, that is why. And don't forget, just go to load game, and you're going to be able to switch on the fly as well. And let's move over to Mega Man X2, one of my favorite Mega Man games on the Super Nintendo, although honestly, both of them are quite good in the X franchise. And this core has awesome audio as well. I do think it's slightly high by default. You might want to turn your audio levels down, or maybe just my capture card, but go ahead and listen to the audio quality for like 35-45 seconds. I'll come back and show you more about the Super Nintendo core and why you should love it. I just think that sounds spectacular. It's crisp, it's clear, it's everything I expected to sound like and nothing different, but tell me down below what you think. Now let's talk about image quality. Real Super Nintendos and real Super Famicoms on RGB look excellent, but they do have some strange analog video signal issues that you can mod out. Here on the Analogue Pocket core, this just looks absolutely outstanding. Now there's no filters in OpenFPGA yet, at least at the making of this video, so what you see is what you get, and hopefully soon those do come, because I know a lot of people like scan lines and different sort of masks and filters. You're not going to get that right now, but hopefully in the future you will. But at least the image quality we're getting right now is exactly as it should be, and I will say, as far as responsiveness, the control, playing Mega Man X2, it feels exactly as I would expect it to if I was playing on real hardware. Honestly, if you didn't show me what I was playing on, I would know the difference, but that's because I wouldn't see RGB jail bars going up and down the screen. And the best part is, just like the Sega Genesis core, the Super Nintendo doesn't really have any region lockout whatsoever. Whatever game you throw at it, whether it be Japanese, whether it be North American or otherwise, the core is just going to load it up. Super Bomberman 5 here was a Japanese exclusive that never came to the US, and you don't need to do anything special whatsoever to get it running on your Analogue Pocket, which is always nice. The less steps, the better. If you never played the Super Bomberman franchise on Super Nintendo, definitely check it out. There's 5 games and each one is unique and amazing. But of course, if it doesn't do something like play Super Metroid, who's really going to want to bother with the core whatsoever? It works perfectly, and I'm probably going to do a handheld run through of Super Metroid now that I have everything going for myself. That is what I'm experiencing with the Analogue Pocket. For Super Nintendo, it just works. Now there's other cores that definitely still have some growing pains that I'm waiting on reviewing until they get a little bit more updated. But Super Nintendo right now, if you just want to pick it up and play it, it is spectacular. And if you've never played Super Metroid before, definitely check it out. But just running through the intro level here, trying to escape before the timer runs out, an impossible task to fail, honestly. And this just feels like playing Super Metroid again on real hardware. That is the best compliment you can give to a device that's FPGA based. If it feels like you're just playing real hardware, that is good enough for me, and it should be good enough for you as well. And as you see here, we've escaped and we have a whole adventure waiting for us. But if you have any issues setting up the SNES core for Analogue Pocket, leave me a comment down below, and if I have time I will help you. But the good thing is, once you get Super Nintendo set up on your Analogue Pocket, all you do is add games and continue to have the fun. And don't forget to check the playlist down below. I've got different tutorials on different cores. I'm going to be releasing one per week, and if you want to see one in particular, leave me a request down below and maybe I'll get to it sooner than later. Short of that, Super Nintendo on the Analogue Pocket, 10 out of 10, love it, great mobile. You should definitely check it out. I'll have more videos throughout the week, but we are done. Have a good weekend. Bye bye.